Hey, kia ora, Helen Brums here, coming to you live from Sun City in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic, sparkling, winning Wednesday. Yay! That day of the week, we get to celebrate our wins for the week, even though we should be celebrating them when they happen. So what were your wins today? This morning we asked you what your wins were for the week. Now we're asking you, what wins did you have today? You're more likely to remember the wins if you celebrate them. So we need to celebrate them. And when you celebrate, you get into that really cool feeling of, oh my gosh, this feels so awesome, amazing, and everything else. And what do? Some people go and go, oh, that was so great. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that was great. And they stop. They just sit there and bask in the glow of the win. And it slowly fades away. And then they're back to like, oh, now what do I do? Whereas while you're still basking in the glow, keep moving forward, because when you keep moving forward, amazing things happen because you remember that feeling. So use that feeling to help propel you forward. It's very simple. So keep that momentum of the win and the celebration while you still have that feeling. Start on the next goal or the next step or the next thing that you have to do that you need to accomplish. And then you can celebrate that one. And then you start on the next one. And it just has a snowball effect. And you start feeling really good about yourself. You start feeling really good about what it is that you do. And it starts to reflect off other people as well. So keep that winning sensation going by going out and winning again and again. If you stop, it's harder to get started. And people tend to give up at that point. So we don't want you giving up. Today, for me, was a productive day. My puppy now has a new habit, or she's now doing something new that she's done for the last 2 or 3 mornings. While I sit here and have breakfast, I usually have breakfast around 6:20, 6:30, and I'll read a Kindle story. So, like, I'm in the middle of reading the Maze Investigations, which is a genealogy detective book, and I read their first book, which was 3 Times Removed, which was about an evil thing that kind of came down through the family, and this woman learned more about her line, where she came from, and everything else. Well, now she's part of this Maze Investigations organization, and so are 2 of the characters that you meet in the book. They created this thing, and now they go and solve these genealogy things. Well, now we have this one has got 3 different storylines going. 3. And I'm sort of like thinking, these are all going to tie up somehow. I got to keep reading. So I sit here and I read it while I have breakfast in the morning. And Zeffie usually comes out around 7 o'clock, but the last few mornings she's been coming out before 7. And she'll come trotting out here, not even paying me any attention. Even when I call to her, she will ignore me and go straight up to she's on a mission. She goes straight up to her bed on the dash there. She opens the side curtain. Yes, and she knows how to open the side curtain because it's got one of those poles that help that you grab to open and close the curtains. And you see her going like this with her head as she tries to get onto the right side of the thing. And then as soon as she's there, she just pushes it aside. It's the coolest thing to see. And then around 6:50, if I haven't moved yet to go and have a shower, she comes and sits down here on the floor next to the bench seat that I'm sitting on, and she puts one paw on there and goes, and I look down, and one paw up on the chair is like, it's time to go. Come on, you got to go get your shower so we can go and get our walk done. So if I haven't moved, she started doing that at 6:50 in the morning, which isn't too bad. Usually I'm in the shower earlier than that, like I go closer to 6:30, because I'm usually done with breakfast by then. But sometimes the book gets I get a little carried away with the story, so she's just like my little reminder. So she started doing that the last 2 or 3 mornings, which is kind of cool. But we had another productive day again, got a lot of stuff done. Having fun learning this new software that's going to help my business, that will incorporate with stuff that I already use. And I have an appointment I have a strategy meeting with with one of the directors of the company on Friday morning, so I'm looking forward to that. And I've got a lot of videos I need to watch between now and then. So I'm working on that during my lunch break, at the end of the day, just squeezing it in where I can when I'm not doing work for clients. But yeah, it's and I'm just sort of like, I just want to keep doing this. I just want to tell the client, sorry, I'm closed for the day, and just get in there and get this done. But no, I don't do that. But today I tried something new too, because when I got the groceries yesterday, I was picking my stuff to get put into the cart and everything else, and something caught my eye, and I went, "What the heck?" And I went back and had a look, and it was called cheeseburger chips. Backyard cheeseburger chips, and I'm like, backyard cheeseburger chips, really? And it was actually the store brand, and I thought, let's give them a try. You know, it was $1.50 for the bag, and so I was trying them this morning. I was trying them today, and they weren't too bad. Some of the And depending on how the seasoning ended up on the chips, some of them had a little more of a dill taste to them. Some of them had a little more of the cheese on the burger thing. So you could taste taste, if you think of a cheeseburger where you've got your dill pickle, you got your pickles, you got your burger, you got your cheese, your tomato, your lettuce, and the buns. And that's basically, if you take that mouthful, that's basically what you were tasting in these chips. They're actually really, really good. I was surprised. So, and the flavors weren't strong. They were just a little more subtle than some of the other flavors. And like I took a bite, another one was, I was on a Zoom with the people I work with on the help desk, and they said, "What are you eating?" I said, "Cheeseburger chips." And they're like, "Cheeseburger?" I said, "Yeah, that was just something I stumbled across while I was doing my grocery shopping yesterday, so I thought I'd give them a try." And they said, "What are they like?" I said, "Well, this one's got a little too much pickle, dill pickle in it." And I said, "Now this one here, I can taste the lettuce with a little bit of cheeseburger." And they said, "You can taste the lettuce." I said, "Yeah, you know how when you bite into a burger and you get that like little bit of flavor of the lettuce, and you get that." They're like, "Yeah." I said, "That's kind of what it tastes like." So they were actually pretty good. I know it's something weird and crazy, but they were actually pretty good. And so, yeah, they'll be one of those things that once in a while I'll have on my once in a while list. But they were pretty good. So, tell your story question of the day was, what was the first car you purchased and what did you name it? I love this one. People go, "You name cars?" I go, "Yeah, I always name all my cars." In fact, I got a call. The guy that bought Animal sent me a text message a few months ago, and he says, to me, he says, I've sold your car, and the person who bought it wants to know if it had a name. And he goes, "What was it that you named this car?" And I said, "Animal." It was after the drum, and I said, "Animal, named after the drummer from the Muppets." And he's like, "Okay." So he passed that on to let her know that that my 15-year-old Subaru Forester was called Animal, or the car I had for 15 years, and it was red. It was called Animal. I didn't want to name it Elmo because it just didn't seem right for a Subaru to be called Elmo. And so I was trying to think of another red Muppet. And but Brad's dark blue Yukon was Grover, and then I added on the Beast. It was Grover the Beast because it was such a big car, such a big vehicle to drive around in. And what I found funny when I started driving Sparkles is I actually found it easier to drive than the Yukon. And people go, "How do you find that easier to drive?" I said, "Probably because I'm up higher and it doesn't feel like I have the huge vehicle behind me. Yes, I have to be conscious of the space around the vehicle." I said, "But when I was driving the Yukon, it literally felt like I was driving a beast of a vehicle," which is how it got the Beast added onto it. I said, "But this is very comfortable to drive. It seems easier to drive than the Yukon." So, but then his Yukon was the same age as my Subaru. So, anyway. And today, I get to answer a question today. So, if you're looking at doing family tree research and you come across a term you don't know, or come across some part that you don't know, that you have a question on, maybe it's sort of like, "Well, I've looked here, and here for this. Where do I go for that? Is there any other place I can look for those records?" So I've got our very first family tree research question for you. And this comes from Sue in Kansas City. So Sue, thank you very much for your question. Always love it when people send me questions. I love questions. So if you want to send me a question on family tree research, just private message me, or you can write it in the comments below. Either, it doesn't matter. I will get it and we will answer it. So because Sue was one of the first ones to send me a question, I thought this is a really good question because it is asked so much amongst the genealogy community. When people come to them, they go, "Well, how do you even start researching your family tree? Where do you start? I want to find out information on this person. Where do I start?" And the answer is very simple. Start with what you know. Start with yourself. You can download them. You can download free forms online that are called family group sheets. You can download pedigree charts, ancestral charts. There's different charts that you can download where you can write this information in before you start looking at doing a software or something. But basically, and you want to get this information together before you start going online so you have it there. and you can just fill it in when you type it in. But start with what you know. Who are you? What is your full name? And if you are married, if you're a female and you're married, you need to put your maiden name there. Because when you're doing research, you always put the maiden name of the woman in there. And you can always put who you are married to, so that they know that. So when you're researching, you know to look, that will on different software levels, it will look for the female under the maiden name as well as the married name. So it's always good to have the maiden name in there, because that's what you were born with. So start with what you know. What is your full name? First name, middle name, maiden name. What was the name you were born with, you were christened with? When and where were you born? Always remember when and where for anything. Birth, marriage, death is always christenings, baptisms are always when and where. So you want the date you were born and where you were born. And then go to your parents. What do you know about your parents? What are their full names? When and where were they born? When and where did they get married? When and where were they, if they're not still with you, when and when did they die? What was their cause of death? If you know what the cause of death was, fill that in too. And we'll answer that question later on, because I actually got asked a question as to why it is important to find out how your ancestors died. And we will answer that question on another time. So, but you're always asking these questions: when and where, when and where were they born, when and where were they christened or baptized, when and where did they get married, when and where did they die. So then you start with that information that you know. Then you move from your parents to your grandparents. Write down as much detail as you know about them, but make sure you get the basics in there, which is birth, deaths, and marriage, or birth, marriage, death, whichever way you want to do it. BMD, birth, marriage, death. Always start with those figures, those things, and then you can fill in things like, well, this was their occupation. These are places I know that they lived. My dad was born in this house. My grandparents are still in that house, or still own that house until, my dad's now living there, or something like that. Write down as much detail, but start with the basics: birth, marriages, and deaths. And then you can go back in and then start writing down as much as you know about the people, places they have lived, events that they were involved with, like historical events. Did they serve in the military? If you know the dates that they served in the military, write them down as well. As much information as you can. Did they have a religion? Were they part of, were they Catholic or Anglican or Presbyterian or Baptist or Methodist or Mormon or Jewish or Islamic? What was their religion? Put that in there as well if you know what their religion were. When you put the where and whens, if you can put like the name of the hospital they were born in, or the church temple or synagogue they got married in, or if it was out in the middle of a garden somewhere at somebody's house, where did they get married? Not just the town, the county, and the state or the country. Where in that town did they get married? And if you have copies of the certificates, that is even better, because now you have a whole bunch of other information. And we will talk about what information you can find on different certificates at a later time. But for now, just start with what you know. Don't go looking for anything. Just start with what's in here first. Get it all written down. This is what I know about me and my life. These are all the places I have lived. This is when I was born. This is when I got married. This is who I got married to. And if you've been married more than once, write them all down. And then start with your parents, when and where, and start with the same information with your parents. Write down as much as you know, but try and get the dates in there too. The dates are important. And we need to know the when and where's on those dates, because sometimes you can end up with people who have the same names that lived in the same area, like the same county. And I have had this turn up. I made a mistake on a client's family tree one time, but I picked up the mistake myself. I realized a couple of days later that I'd made a mistake, because I had picked up the wrong person, because there were two women who had the same first name that married into the family of the same last name. So the only way you could tell the two women apart was who was their husband. But they both married men of the same last name. I have not found if there's a connection between those two men yet. So they may have been brothers, they may have been cousins. I don't know. I haven't found that yet. But the two women, they both had a son born within weeks of each other in the same county. And they were given the same first name, and the child was given the same first name and last middle name. So you had, and they weren't that, the mother's name was not a common name. And so I thought, well, this should be easy to find. And then I started realizing that at some point I started following the wrong mother, the wrong line and census reports and that. So I had to go backtrack and try and find the other one and then follow that line. So this is why it's important to know the town as well as the county where they were born, because there may be more than one person with that name in the county, even in the town. So that is why it's good to know. If you know the parents, write them down. So anything that you know, so just start with one person, put their name at the top of a page, put birth, marriage, death down there, and write in that information. And then use the rest of the page to write down as much other information as you know, like did they have a military service? Were they involved with a church, temple, or synagogue? What was that? What was their religion? If they had a religion, some people did, some people didn't. Where did they go to school? What school did they go to? What schools did they attend? Any information that you can think of, write it down. What occupations have they had over the years? And then from that we can start. And so just write down everything that you know, and that is where you start. Start with what you know. Then you can start, if you know that you've got a box of certificates, then bring those out after you've written down everything you can think of that person, and start going through the boxes of certificates. Photographs are also good to go through as well, especially if people have been kind enough to put people's names and dates on the photographs. Because then you can start adding them in and writing down information. Even go sideways to the brothers and to the siblings, brothers and sisters as well, because if there is a relative like a grandparent or a great-grandparent or a great-great-grandparent that you're missing, sometimes you have to go out to the siblings to find the record that gives you that next level of generation. So that's how you start. Start with what you know first. Write down everything that you know, and that's and it's one of the things that when I'm working with clients, when we're doing the discovery call, is they tell me who they're looking for in the tree or what they're trying to find out, and then I just start. Okay, your name at birth. Where were you born? Did you get married? Where did you get married? And start going. And then I start. Who was your father? Who was your mother? What do you know about your grandparents? That sort of thing. And so I just start asking them these same questions. So that's how you start your family tree research. Just write down what you know. Then we add in the layer of any certificates or photographs you got, because sometimes photographs will trigger, oh, that's right, my father did this, or my grandfather did this, oh, my grandfather was here. So whatever. So when you're ready to start, that's where you start. Start with what you know and write it all down. Get a notebook, put one page per person and just write. Or if you really want to, you can go on a computer, open a Word document, and just start writing out the information that you know. Okay, so Sue from Kansas City, thank you so much for your question. I appreciate it. We do have another question coming up, but I haven't decided which one I'm going to answer that one. So we will see. But we do have other questions that have been submitted as well. So if you have a family tree research question, and it could be on the actual research itself, it could be on the terminology, it could be a stumbling block you've come across where you've been searching for somebody's birth, and these are the places you have tried. Where else could you try? So we can answer those, give you some advice on that one, on other places that you can try as well, and some tools that will be available to you online for searching and things. So anyway, go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling rest of your Winning Wednesday, and we will catch you back here bright and early tomorrow morning for Thankful Thursday. Hei korera.